So, Laura, the core argument that we just heard from Donald Trump's lawyers is that everything he's being prosecuted for here is protected First Amendment political speech. And you heard the lawyer argue that even if the speech is false, even if it's unpopular, it's still protected.
So that is legal analyst Ilya Honig saying that this is effectively a free speech argument. The argument is everything Donald Trump and his co-conspirators did in Georgia in trying to overturn the results of the election and calling up Brad Raffensperger and telling him to find me the votes, that's not a crime. That's just speech, okay? Doing that or, filing documentation under false witness or getting people to impersonate elected officials. All of that is just speech. Now, is that likely to work? I have my thoughts, but I want to continue with a little bit more from CNN. Take a look at this.
When does this First Amendment issue get decided? And you heard the judge sort of say, well, why don't we, isn't the way we decide this is we put it in front of the jury and we let the jury decide at trial. Donald Trump's lawyer objected to that. He said, no, we'd like you to throw it out now. Why go through with the whole exercise of a trial if this indictment ultimately is going to be no good? Really important one other thing to note, Laura. This same argument was made by Donald Trump in his federal case in Washington, D.C. relating to election subversion. And the federal judge there, and you heard reference to this, Judge Chutkan, she rejected that First Amendment argument. She said, no, I find this is not protected speech. It crossed the line into criminality and we'll leave it for the jury.
Okay, so I'm glad that he cited that, but you should also understand that in related cases, the Trump co-defendants, Kenneth Chesebro, the Cheesebro himself, and Sidney Powell also tried to hide behind the First Amendment for the either the crimes they themselves committed or the organization that they did with other people to have crimes be committed in pursuit of this overall effort to overturn the results of the election. None of those First Amendment defenses proved to be successful. So that's not to say that this one won't. Maz, we've seen judges bending over backwards to help out Donald Trump, including earlier this week in New York. So it could happen. There doesn't appear to be any reason that it should happen. What do you think?
It's also frustrating because the fact is that the speech that they were using was to commit a crime. Overthrowing an election is a crime. An election that was done fairly. They're basically trying to take away the votes of those people who voted, many of them people of color, many of them other people who were frustrated with Donald Trump, sick of Donald Trump. Matter of fact, it's interesting because he always brags about, I got the most votes, I got the most votes, people love me so much. But yes, you also inspired the people that hate you to come out and vote. So I will give him that he's good at inspiring people to come out and turn out at the polls. But the fact that these guys are trying to hide behind free speech is the most ridiculous thing in the world. Given that it's like saying like, oh, we were conspiring to rob a bank, but we're talking about it. That's free speech to talk about and try to convince people to go along with this bank robbery and this big, like you said, this big RICO case. It's the most ridiculous and frustrating thing for us on the outside to watch how slowly it progresses and how much crap they throw. He said that the Trump's attorney said that just because it's unpopular doesn't make it illegal. It's not that it was unpopular. It wasn't. It was. It's criminal. You tried to overthrow. It's not like he was saying something like, "Oh, when this is done, I want to go and I want to secede and I want to start my own country." All right, that's not illegal to say that. You can say that. That's an unpopular idea, but you can say it.
Yeah.
But you actually, yeah.
Yeah, I just like, but also it's like, okay, we can't really defend that it wasn't a crime. So we'll pretend that the issue is that it's unpopular because that's a territory that we think we can defend. It would be like if I tried to hire a hitman, which is speech, but a crime, but I did it like this in a silly accent, I want you to wipe him out. I speak in this crazy over the top accent. And then when they take me to court, I'm like, I understand it was offensive to use that accent. That's not the problem. That's not what people have an issue with. It's the crime that you're attempting to coordinate. And it wasn't just the things that they said. They wanted to make it seem as if our biggest issue is Donald Trump bleeding the big lie. That's not the issue. It's you putting pressure on election officials in the state, Brad Raffensperger. Remember, it wasn't just like I always say, shorthanded as I need you to find me the votes. He threatened Brad Raffensperger, saying that he might be committing a crime if he doesn't secure the election. Maybe they'll come looking for you. He was literally using his position as the then president of the United States to pressure an election official to violate the law. And they encouraged people to pretend to be electors. They were impersonating actual officials in our government. They were signing documentation, bearing false witness, which is supposed to be a big thing for Christians or whatever. They did all of those things. And the issue with them wasn't that it was unpopular, it was that they were indeed crimes. And that is why this shouldn't go anywhere. But again, all of these legal processes have not necessarily gone the way they should have. So everybody brace yourself. You don't know.
Well, it's funny. First of all, the accent you did, I think you would have been using the Borat defense. I was doing Borat. I did not mean to kill him. But
he's nice.
But he's nice. But you're absolutely, listen, I had a neighbor who was very aggressive and at one point he was a little off. He got aggressive. We called the police. The police came over. They said, well, did he threaten to, attack you? I said, he didn't say those words. He said, did he threaten to kill you? I said, he didn't say those words. He goes, so he does that. We can't do anything. So the police were saying, until the actual threat happens, we can't do anything. Now, in Donald Trump's case, he actually said, as you said, find me the vote. Overturn the election for me. He actually had his people saying, hang Mike Pence. He is responsible for any damage that was done that day. They keep talking about Ashley Babbitt. He's responsible for Ashley Babbitt. He riled his people up.
Yeah.
He sent them to the Capitol. It's so plain sight. We see it in our own eyes. We see it plainly. And for these lawyers to be playing these games and for this legal system to work so slowly, any other country, January 7th, he would have been in handcuffs and he would have been in a military tribunal and he'd be away for life. Because the truth is, all joking aside, it was very serious. If those people had gotten to Mike Pence or Nancy Pelosi or any other member of Congress, they would have injured and or killed that person. It was a 100%. Very serious situation. And now for these people to turn around and say, oh, they were just tourists and now they're hostages. It's so unbelievable, the gall that these people have, the nerve that Donald Trump has to be running again. If anything, he should just be, somewhere in the Cayman Islands or somewhere else where there's no extradition. I think Cayman Islands has it, but wherever there is, and just laying low. And yet he's got the gall to be back and doing this, and it's just unbelievable.
He should have been laying low and thanking his lucky stars that he was able to get away with all of it. And no, that's not enough for him. He always wants more. He wants to commit more crimes.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.